I think television has done a lot of damage to our society and turned people into less thinking, less reacting people because they're actually dumbing down the stories so much. I want to engage with the masses. I don't want to be in my echo chamber talking about subjects that people are already interested in or already know about. I, in reaction to her, am none of those. Nor was a good wife, I'm divorced, nor I am a mother because I don't have any kids. And I'm very proud of my nanny. I don't hide the wife label. It's very difficult to actually protest and dissent at home. It's easier to do it outside sometimes. It's very easy to hold placards and believe in your ideology, but soft play it at home in the name of lihaz, in the name of tradition, in the name of not hurting your elders, whatever. And it's easier to let go of that negotiation at home. There is a line that has been given to us by Amir Aziz, "Sab kuch yaad rakha jayega." So that is a very important line. It has to be kept in mind that we are, if nothing else, if you're not famous and if you're not popular or we're not successful, we are still recorders.
The playing field, or how we operate, how we look at things, how we look at growth, what success means, all these definitions have been out there for a while and hasn't really served people or planet.
Truth has become suspect. Like, what do you believe in? So your fact checking becomes very important. Truth has been the philosophical guide for all of us, So the moment the definition of truth has changed, you're shaken as a society. Core capitalists are striving upon two support pillars. So it's a triangle, it's a troika. It is religion, patriarchy, and capitalism. How is power defined? How is profit defined? You will have to find new definitions for them. They both prepared the grounds for me to start thinking along those directions. Is that when does craft become art? You can be a very good skilled dancer or a skilled percussionist, but if you're just producing movement on stage or sound on stage, you are still useful for society because society needs music and dance. So if you're skillful, but you also have an idea that you're trying to explore through your art and you're trying to combine the two, is when it starts for me becoming art.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of The Ultimate Inquiry. I'm your host, Pracheta Budhwar. Our guest today is someone who pushes the boundaries with finesse, someone who brings desi swag to sophisticated storytelling, someone who has carved her distinct space in the world of theatre. Purva Naresh is a critically acclaimed playwright and director. She has directed 7 productions and written more than 15 plays, including Bandish, Aaj Rang Hai, Lady Sangeet, and Charni Rate. These have traveled to major Indian festivals and abroad and won her several awards. Purva, welcome to The Ultimate Inquiry.
Thank you, Pracheta. Lovely to be here.
I'm so glad that we could do it. So you are known for your plays and the impressive body of work in contemporary theatre scene. Was theatre always your calling from the start? Give our audience a sense of your journey so far.
I won't say theatre was the calling, but stage was, because I'm a trained professional dancer as well as a percussionist, and also trained in storytelling from India's premier film institute, FTII Pune. So I guess storytelling and stage I was already introduced to, so I guess I just amalgamated the two and that became theatre. Stories and stage, yeah.
Stories and stage. And music, right? Your plays have a theme of music all across.
Right. So percussions and dance give me that into music. I'm not a singer, but I can't sing to save my life. But rhythm and movement, yes.
Yeah. And being surrounded by poetry and music from childhood really makes a deep impression on a child. And you are blessed to be born to your brilliant mother and father. So what was it like growing up in a household with so much of art around?
I definitely can't deny my privilege when it comes to art and culture. My father is a renowned poet, Hindi poet, and my mother was a filmmaker. She was a second direction graduate from Film Institute. And my nanny was also a singer. She was a professional singer. So growing up, there was a lot of conversation about music and about films and theater and paintings and you name it. And there was a lot of music because my mother used to do her riyaz, and they constantly used to refer to my nani's music. And my father also plays the flute and harmonica, though he's self-trained, and so he used to play in the college band, so he's pretty good. But he's not like a professional, harmonica or a flute player. My father's a poet, but he's also an engineer. So the evenings used to be, or weekends used to be, full of either going for plays or movies or they also ran a studio together, an audio recording studio. They also ran a film production house together. So, discussing scripts, doing rehearsals, doing meetings, debating, intellectual arguments. And the house was full of books. It was crawling with books on photography, on music, on film, on poetry, literature, you name it. So, yeah, I mean, it was just wonderful. I think I'd never even realized when I started. Becoming so interested in art and culture myself.
Yeah, it was a natural phenomena.
Yeah, and my mother made sure that I started learning dance when I was 3 or 4, and that I also started learning a percussion instrument to complement the Kathak initially, and then it became a full-fledged art form that I studied, instrument that I studied. So she made sure that she facilitated that. It requires a lot of legwork and homework for a parent to start thinking about their child's artistic inclinations or creative inclinations. So she made sure that I was enabled.
Mm. And of course, there are so many ways in which our parents influence us. But if you have to think about a few ways in which they have had a most profound influence on you, to the person that you are today.
Well, I do remember very distinctly when I was learning dance, Kathak, and my father once approached me, and I was getting ready for my solo performance. And my father approached me and asked me that, why do you learn dance? Because I was also a percussionist at the same time. So I had a choice. Both my teachers were always forever trying to pull me into their direction, like become a dancer or become a percussionist. And, you can't do both. And you have to surrender to one wholeheartedly and all that. I was always like kind of caught in this tug of war between my two teachers. So I remember my father when I was preparing for my dance solo. And by that time, I had already, I think, won my state competition in my pakhavaj, that's my percussion instrument. And I had also won the National All India Radio competition, which is very prestigious in pakhavaj. So clearly, pakhavaj was, winning in terms of awards. And then I was preparing for my Kathak solo, and he asked me, he said, why do you want to be a dancer? Why do you learn dance? And I said, I mean, why not? And he said, no, see, the thing is that the politics is such that being a woman, it requires your dance solo, it requires so much costume and jewelry and makeup and your get up. And it'll always be easy for you to attract eyeballs. Even someone who doesn't understand dance will come and watch it because there's a young body all dressed up and is dancing,
Yeah.
and they would just watch you for whatever. And there would be no leaning in. They will just enjoy without understanding most of it. You are spending so much energy. You are taking 100 chakkars and so much energy the audience has to give you, and you're using so much movement. You're displacing yourself constantly from one point of stage to the other point of stage, and the audience has to move with you emotionally and psychologically. So why so much energy is being expended, and with so much chakkar, energy that you put in so many chakkars, you might as well just dig a well. He was a public health engineer who was working with water supply department. You might as well dig a well, and some people can just get. I mean, of course, he was being a little too radical, just pushed me, not that he's that
Yeah.
person, but he was just trying to push me into thinking. So he said, why don't you just, be more socially productive work? Why art? Why do you do this? Why do you do these 100 chakkars and ये टुकड़ा वो टुकड़ा and ये तराना वो तराना, इसमें इतनी मेहनत लगती है. Why do you do this? And I had no idea. I had no answer then. I kept thinking about it. And he said, how do you make it meaningful or socially productive? And of course, I had no answers about how art is necessary for mental health or for, our development and our evolution and all that. I was still like a 17-year-old or maybe younger. But he did push me, and that is, I think, was the intent, push me towards thinking about the difference between craft and art. When does craft become art? And for me, the answer was that he propelled me, I think, or they both prepared the grounds for me to start thinking along those directions. Is that when does craft become art? You can be a very good skilled dancer or a skilled percussionist, but if you're just producing movement on stage or sound on stage, you are still useful for society because society needs music and dance. But when there's an idea associated to craft or empowered by craft, so if you're skillful, but you also have an idea that you're trying to explore through your art, and you're trying to combine the two, is when it starts for me becoming art. So it's meaningful in that sense, or it is trying to resonate with the times that I'm living in. It is trying to reflect or record or archive my time, my timeline in
Yeah.
which I'm existing as an artist, is when my craft becomes art. Otherwise, it could very dangerously slide into the realm of just being entertainment. Just very skillful craft without an idea or ideology can often slide into being appropriated by the entertainment industry or the market. So yeah, I think that's what he was trying to push me towards by saying you're very skilled, but where is the idea? Because you're just reproducing what your gurus have taught without, you're thoughtlessly just reproducing, and you're reproducing it so well. It's so beautiful. It fills us with joy. But are you also trying to think, and do you have a bigger idea than just your skill? And I think that's one of the most beautiful things he could have pushed me towards. I think so. A lot of, I mean, at that point in time, I could have thought that he's, there's a difference in gender, and he's a man, and he's trying to, intimidate me about my body, and telling me that you're a girl, so it's easier for the male gaze to appropriate the stance. And that's also true. If he was trying to do that, and that's also something to think about. But I think the bigger idea was that try associating your craft now with idea, your skill with idea. Well, my mother sent me to Film Institute. Sent me because she was very adamant before that I should do my UPSC, which is my civil services exam, and get into civil services, because in India,
Yeah.
bureaucracy has the power, and all artists ultimately, if they're only funded by the government primarily, and at that point in time the private sector was not that active, so a lot of artists were dependent upon government grants and government created opportunities. So her thing was like, become a bureaucrat, because otherwise you'll be at the other end of the stick, always waiting for donations or grants or fellowships, and that's very frustrating. So she was insisting upon me taking my UPSC, and I was insisting upon going to the film school like her to study films. And finally she got me the, because I gave up. I was like, okay, fine, she's not agreeing, I don't want to hurt her or whatever, I'll do it next year, I'll take another year to convince her. I didn't want to just rebel, and that's not what you do when you're an Indian kid at the age of 17 or
Yeah.
18. And so she got me the form just before the last date, and she said, "Phil, it's okay, it's fine. I'm happy as long as you're sure." And then we realized that the institute had made a radical change in the admission process, and they were only offering editing or production to fresh graduates, because the other courses were either for BSc students, or they were for people with 5 years work ex. So direction was not an option, basically. It was for
Mhm.
somebody with 5 years work ex, or with a prior diploma in filmmaking, or some related stream like a sound recording or camera or something. So I was only left with editing or production as an option. And my mother advised me at that point in time, and she said, try not take editing, because I'm a very messy, chaotic person. I'm not meticulous at all. And those are the days of analog editing, where you You did not have digital machines. You used to edit on Steenbeck, and you had to make bins and spools and things like that. And she said you would get very frazzled because your mind is very chaotic. It's very active, very energetic, but it's very chaotic. And editing so far is a very meticulous job. You have to be meticulous in everything, but like spools and the manual labor of doing that, you would really struggle. So she said you already know music, you already have it in you, you know rhythm, you understand rhythm. So through dance and pakhavaj, and editing is a lot about rhythm. So I would suggest that you take production, and it was a new course. And I was like, well, why production? It sounds so dead and dry, and she said, because that's something you don't know. You don't have a business head, and you're also very disorganized. So in production, you will learn how to be a self-driven artist. You will know the business of art as well, and the organization behind it. And then she gave me this example of the Natraj. So Natraj is Ardhanareshwar, part feminine energy and part masculine energy in Indian art. And Natraj has one foot on the ground and one foot in, ether. And Natraj is the god of dance and music and art, right? So she said that that foot is in the air, and that is the artistic manifestation of the artist. That is the sphere in which the artist resides most of the time, because it's neither sky nor earth. It is undefined, and it's not material. It's not concrete. So that is where the artist is most of the time, but the artist can be there most of the time because one foot is planted firmly on the ground. So that foot is the production. I mean, she kind of coaxed from there. And she's like, that foot is the production realm. And because that foot is firmly planted on the ground is why the other foot can be venturing in that sphere of the artist. So you will have an opportunity to have both because you're already an artist. You've already devoted 15 years of your life to studying art forms, and now you need to get this foot planted firmly into organizational skills so that you know the business of art as well.
It's just fascinating, Purva, how like I had a couple of things I wanted to eventually bring up in the conversation. And in your like very start of kind of touched on both the aspects. One is, of course, the craft and art aspect, right? Like what art means for you has changed over the years, what it meant for you when you were 20 versus what it would mean for you when you are 40. It might have changed, or has it really been the same? And then I'll come to my second question.
When I was in my 20s, it was a very interesting phase because a lot of political upheaval also happened around that time, which did not make a lot of sense to me. I was 17, and the Mandal Commission had been enforced, and this student had self-immolated, against Mandal Commission. And Mandal Commission was about caste reservation, and it was about securing a certain percentage of seats everywhere in jobs and in education for the SCST quota. And this student had self-immolated. Obviously, the student was from an upper caste and had said this is not fair. And and there was a whole debate and an argument. And as students, a lot of us were debating, but I didn't know which side to take because the student who self-immolated took away all the sympathy because they were just so passionate about it, and with some very strongly backed causes and reason. But there was also this whole caste debate associated with reservation, and that still comes up because we still have a Rohit Vermila who dies by suicide, and not just Rohit Vermila, so many other students who are lesser known, who are harassed. And so the full implication of that debate we didn't understand when we were so young in first year of college, and I didn't know which side to take. I used to think caste is like race. Maybe, when I was in 30s, I was trying to understand caste and what was this big debate. And caste actually is, in those days, caste was not really something that we realized we even displayed in our everyday behavior. Like, even in surnames, you would happily go for a dinner by Kayast Samaj if somebody invited you, or if somebody said, "Are ye Kayastho ki dish hai," and you would be like,
Yes.
you would say, "Acha," you don't have the discretion of understanding how caste is sitting in your everyday practices and how you have normalized it. And it is such a harrowing experience for others. Lived reality experience, meaning it's a lived reality, everyday lived reality for others. And you don't understand. And then in your 30s, we also thought caste is removed. Now in urban cities, caste doesn't exist. And in educated sectors, caste is just a thing, वो गाँव खेड़े में होती होगी और कितनी ब्रूटली होती है ये तो फिल्मों में दिखाते हैं, like this is what Bollywood thrives upon, but there is no such thing as people not being allowed to drink from rivers or draw water from certain wells because of their caste. And this is all of a bygone era, and we have changed the world just by existing and just by our generational privilege, But no, I mean, when you grow older, and now for sure, we know how serious and how deeply conditioned we are about caste, that we have to, and you have to question ourselves, and we have to constantly keep challenging ourselves to just get rid of it. Like, even the fact that we in India, we have cheap labor, so we have house helps who come and clean our bathrooms, and sometimes when they're not around for 2-3 days, you let it slide. You're like, Arey, it's all right. The bathroom is not that dirty. They'll come back. So cleaning up is someone else's job. Dealing with your filth is someone else's job, is a caste conditioning. And we kind of normalize it as laziness. Oh, I'm just being lazy about it. No, I'm not being lazy about it. I have a deep rooted caste conditioning about cleanliness. And I feel that the filth is to be handled by someone else, you know and yes, there is a cross sectionality of urban or of cheap labor, being in a country where there's so much cheap labor that there's domestic help available for every little chore that you have to do, and we don't even realize the feudal mindset behind it, and even the way we want to categorize things or people or label them. There is so much brahminical patriarchy apparent in the way we make our everyday choices and decisions, that if you're not aware, and if you don't constantly, or someone does not constantly question us, we can let it slide and let it normalize and not even think about it twice. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. And it's also like recognizing
A
your
lot of
privilege.
Indians, so definitely I feel confuse class with caste. They're like, no, this is a class thing. It's not a caste thing, but it is coming from caste.
I was having a discussion, very like passionate discussion with a friend the other day, and we concluded that whosoever says that caste or class doesn't exist are the ones who are getting benefited from it. Or you are transparent from it because it doesn't affect your everyday life.
Believe me, I take so many student sessions where a lot of times it's often the men and often sometimes women. But the boys often get up and say, but now it's all equal. Girl child is equal, because they've been seeing that campaign ever since they were born, that girls are equal to boys. But it's not in everyday practices. It's not gone from conditioning. It's translated into certain behavioral changes. Like, girls are also being educated, but what kind of courses are they being pushed into, or how are they being facilitated when they want to choose a college which is away from home, or even those little things. Oh, it's not safe for you. Oh, that college is the politics there is very gunda oriented, so don't go to that college. Go to this college, or this college is closer, or this is where your brother is studying. So choices are always dependent upon safety or driven from concerns of safety. And who's making the world unsafe? The boys, the men. And and so they don't realize that. They're like, no, but now this is such a outdated concept. Girls get the same privileges. They come first in class, and nobody's questioning that. But I mean, that's just such a naive way of understanding equality, gender equality.
Yeah, we let them go out and study, but there would be a curfew on what time the girls have to get back to their girls' hostel versus boys' hostel, where you can come back any time of the night. So the night is yours, the street is yours, the public spaces are yours. One thing which frustrates me a lot is how much public spaces or how one exists, how much space women takes in the world versus how much more space men take up in the world just existing. And I'm not talking about accomplishments or anything, like just by existing. One of the other things that I want to touch today was about finding the balance between your creative flow and how to sustain yourself in the world. Because once have a creative energy, any other professions feel confining. But yet, so many artists and creative people let art be their hobby or passion because monetary benefits of performing art are usually not very encouraging. So, what is it that keeps you growing? Of course, your mom gave a very wonderful advice to put your 1 foot on the ground by understanding production and becoming your own ecosystem in a way. But what is it that keeps you going?
Privatization in India happened in 1991, and it's taken quite a while for it to become fully privatized. Not fully privatized, but for privatized sector to become empowered and enter the arts and entertainment industry as well. Today, do we have monopolies? We don't really have a very healthy private sector, definitely. But also what has happened is that government now has withdrawn a lot from, in fact, just recently we had government closing down some important grants that were available to artists and to theater groups. So, and I am also working in an industry or a sector of the arts and entertainment industry that is least regularized, that is least organized, which is theater. In fact, it is not even an industry right now. It is just a passion driven sector, where you don't really make money. You do theater just to whet your appetite for theater, for stage. Like classical dance forms and filmmaking still are very regularized, And in fact, film is completely now, I would say, 90% dependent upon private sector. But the classical dance performances, music, all these art forms are patronized by the government still. But there is a very healthy private funding also available for them. There is an entertainment industry that is taking an interest in these. But theater really is still a very, very nascent and a very, very growing art form in India. And God knows why, because we've had the Bharatnatyam Shastra since ages, and we've had classic plays also for ages. But for some reason, theater is not a very formal industry in India. And off late, Nita Mukesh Ambani Cultural Center, or the Tatas having the National Center for Performing Arts, or the Birlas, coming up with the Adim Theatre Festival. So, NMACC has started calling in Broadway plays from abroad, the big plays from abroad. And they also have a venue that can support such plays, because till now we didn't even have those venues. Or we had Wizcraft doing Zangura and those kind of, big ticket and long running shows, because in theater, even till date, we just have one day for setup, one night for setup, and the shows are there for 2 days or one day and then they're gone. We don't have runs. We don't runs, long runs like, abroad or even in UK. So unlike other countries, the developed countries, the first, we have a very, very erratic theater setup. And that really has not helped us in producing quality content, which is at par with international standards. And when we have, it has not really got the support of within the country resources. Like then they're either touring abroad or going to Dubai or going to US, or so theater really has suffered and is really a very weak sector right now, and really needs some thinking and some organizational support from the private sector and from the government sector. So right now theater artists are really gasping. They're really gasping. And the subjects that are doing well in any art form, be it in films, it's nationalism or mythology. So you have Dhurandhar and you have Ramayana. The real big ticket numbers, like the crores, even in investment and even in box office recoupment. But in theater, also the big ticket items, the big scale productions that are that have healthy investment and are also being able to draw houses, or are also getting facilitated or getting empowered or enabled, are, let's see, Mughal Azam, Bollywood, Hamare Ram, mythology, um, which is the one that NMAC has produced. I'm forgetting, it's on Krishna. So that one is a Bollywood musical on on Krishna's life. So that
Mm,
something will come up on Hanuman that'll get a good funding and good recoupment offers. So Bollywood mythology, nationalism mostly in films, and Bollywood and
yeah.
mythology in on stage and in theater. These are the three subjects that are really, really getting any kind of interest from funders, from private agencies also for funding. Because when they look at their profit and loss statement, they're going to be like, or their projections, their sales projections, they're like, oh, but they won't be able to sell literature. We won't be able to. So I'll
Mm,
tell you how the funding is happening. Either it is mythology, Bollywood. In films, it is nationalism, or it has to be a remake. So original writing is suffering, original content creation is
right.
suffering. So if you do a remake of a popular film, or if you do a remake of a popular book, and that too not a Hindi book.
Mm,
Obviously, it has to be a book that the corporate sector is reading. So it's Murakami, or it's The Kite Runner, or it's some big title, fancy title like that. You end up paying a lot of rights, to foreign agencies. Those are the subjects that are finding favor with the funders or with people who are greenlighting, commissioning people, and that's really sad because that's killing all the original writing, that's killing all kinds of ideas, that could be great
yeah.
ideas, but they're not ticking any of these boxes. So yes, the private sector is censoring as per popular taste is being controlled by a lot of media support and propaganda, certain kind of propaganda. And because of social media, that game is totally dependent on how much money and how often and what your algorithms are and who's controlling them and so stuff like that. Yeah. So a lot of subjects are getting censored. A lot of ideas are self-censored, and self-censorship is the most dangerous thing to happen to any country, where people start self-censoring out of fear of persecution or because they know that this is not going to grab any attention from the funding agencies, either in the government sector or in the public sector, in the private sector. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's a bit tough, and I guess it's happening all over the world now. So
Mm,
yeah.
that's true.
So gender
That's
is
true.
one thing that people are still okay to talk about.
Mm,
Gender is one subject that you can touch upon, socially relevant subject that you can touch upon.
mm,
But otherwise, you can't talk about, secularism or nationalism. You can't be talking about these subjects if there is any kind of a debate on them. Yeah, you
yeah.
can't raise debate.
Yeah.
You have to be a yes person on these subjects.
It's just evident in across the board, isn't it? It always baffles me because it is a chicken and egg story. I totally understand where you're coming from in terms of one thing leads to another. So people follow the money and nobody's taking as much risk because of persecution and other aspects that you touched upon. People who have big, big money, they want to just play so safe that, they're not just putting money into where there is a good amount of audience to cater to. So it's not that audiences don't have good sensibility or taste for good cinema. You don't need 140 crore people to watch your shows, right? In order to run it for, let's say, a week in a month, all you need is, I don't know, 5,000 people. And those 5,000 people exist.
There is a play of mine that was funded, and then the organizers felt they loved the play, but they said no, 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 this is a little contentious because CAA had broken out at that point in time. CAA protests had broken out. They were like, no, 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 we can't touch upon. And the play is on Kashmir, and
Mm,
they were like, no, 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 we can't. They said, there's nothing here that is contentious. You're not trying to
mm,
be provocative, or there's a very balanced argument from both sides, and it's very entertaining, it's very engaging, it's very aesthetically pleasing. But we cannot touch upon the subject because the word Kashmir right now is very volatile. So the moment you say Kashmir, people will just jump to conclusions, and we can't take that risk. So we will defer the shows. And I said, okay, fine. But do you have any problems if I go ahead with the shows on my own? And they were like, no, of course not. I mean, because they're one of the better producers, and they were like, no, no, for sure. This is your play, and go ahead and do your shows without our label. You can do the shows. And I did do the shows, and they still go house full. It's just that it's an expensive show, and I cannot do as many shows as I want. So I do 2 shows or 4 shows annually. It doesn't get invited to any festival because, again, the festival organizers are like, "Oh my God, this is Kashmir." They don't even bother to see the play. It's like they see the
So lazy. It was such
No,
lazy
it's
criticism.
just lazy, and it's also just being too scared, you know. So they would not even look at it, so it doesn't get invited. It's beautiful. Coming back to your question, do those 5,000 people exist? Yes, they do. And if we take the risk as creators, then we will find those 5,000 people. But do we have the wherewithal? Most of us don't. I will find the 1,000 people because I do 4 shows in Prithvi or in a smaller setup like that. So that's like 800 people in 4 shows, less than 800 people. So I'll find the 1,000 people. I won't find 5,000. If I can find 5,000, that'll be great. But I don't have the wherewithal even to find those 5,000. I'm optimizing 20%. People are there. The audience is there. The government is censoring or inducing self-censorship, and the private sector is not taking risks enough. And that's really surprising because I've studied economics and I know that profit goes to somebody who takes risks.
Exactly. That's always gets me that if someone has just got the monetary benefit in mind and they have got a business sense, there is an audience out there. You have got your market there who is really craving for some good cinema and different storytelling. Like, I have not watched a mainstream Hindi movie for a while because it's all crap. Like, there's hardly anything to enjoy. I think the last Hindi movie I enjoyed was The Three of Us, and that was not in cinema, that was on OTT. There was always a time you would always have these over the top movies in 70s and 80s, always, because there was an audience for it that would, fill the cinema halls. But there would also those not so over the top movies that were being created, and there was definitely an audience for it. So that is really baffling, and probably the lack of courage, or
So the
the deep
lack of
fear.
courage comes from, when I was told by an ad film agency that banking is the most conservative sector in advertising. No banking, no bank would take a risk in their advertising campaign. Like, they would not be instinctive at all. They're very, very careful, and they're very boring. Entrepreneurs are being very, very, because the money is coming from other industries. There's support for art and entertainment, because entertainment is, other than Bollywood, entertainment, and Bollywood also saw regularized investment from the organized sector very late, like in 2000 probably. ABCL was the first one to come up, and I think in 97 or 96. And then after that, it failed. And, there was semi corporate units. And then finally, the ZTVs and the Sonys and the Star Network and, I'm forgetting the names of the others. The international funding came into film industry much later through studios. And that's when it got regularized a little bit. But most of the arts and entertainment industry is running on what we can say, they're the passion or CSR projects of big corporates. So the big money is coming from sectors that are still being controlled by the government. So they look at the government and then they fund their CSR because they don't want to rub people up the wrong way in centers of power. So they're being very, very circumspect in that sense. They're being very, very careful. And that is why some subjects just get self-censored and they're like, no, let's not touch this subject. Whether it'll earn the wrath of the people in power, we don't know.
Yeah. Yes, and it's so unfortunate that, of course, it's happening a lot in India. It's so much in the face, and the media has not crawled, but really lie down and not do their job at all. But it's actually happening across the world, isn't it? We all know that art is political. Yet again and again, the spaces of expression have been pushed to be non-political. Arundhati Roy being pulled out of the Berlin Film Festival is one of the latest in the long string of such
He pulled out.
instances. Yeah, she
He
pulled
pulled
out.
out.
She pulled
Yeah.
out. She is that epitome of courage and conviction. She could, but so many authors, I'm sure, must might not have been comfortable with the president of the festival saying, stay out of politics, but yet they might have participated.
Yeah, that was very strange statement to come from such a responsible position. If
Exactly.
his, I mean, it was very strange because it didn't make any
Yeah.
sense. That statement didn't make any
Yeah.
sense.
And that made me pause because one would argue that over decades and centuries, some aspects for our society would be rooted out eventually. But we yet find ourselves again and again fighting for the very basic fundamentals uh, over the decades, over the centuries. And it really makes me pause from how we operate as a society or the environment that we are in. We keep finding ourselves fighting for the very basic. We spoke about caste, we spoke about, gender issues, we spoke about creative freedom. Um, Talking about feminism is such a touchy subject, while feminism is nothing but equality. So, do you kind of grapple with these sometimes and think, what's going on?
I think my answer, yes, I have grappled with this. And maybe I could be wrong, or I could have room for improvement in this theory of mine. It's not my theory, it's something that I have deduced from various theories. And I feel that primarily art and industry, like profit making, the other industries, are, or business, let's say business and art, are uh, conceptually opposed to each other because art is about increasing the quotient of humanity. I do a lecture series called Why Art for students,
Mm,
and art is about increasing the quotient of humanity in human beings. It is to bring them in touch with their humanity and to increase that, to flourish, to nurture that. And business is always nurturing profit. And when you're seeking profit, profit becomes the goal, whereas in art, humanity becomes the goal. And profit is not a bad thing, but profit, when it's like a machine. So if you're like a formula, if you're formulaic about profit and you're just going on seeking profit, you will start treading into conditions or into territories that are anti-human, because you will only start looking at what drives productivity, what is giving me more product, or what is cutting down my losses or my costs, and those will always be anti people because machines will rule and people will be jobless and things like that. This is very simple, naive way of explaining it, but profit is only
mm,
focused upon itself, and profit is a non-human entity, whereas arts is only
mm,
focused upon humanity and humans. So the two will clash at some point. So that's one thing. And I think the entire, I mean, hardcore capitalist structures, societies, business entities, hardcore capitalist, are thriving upon two support pillars. And their support pillars are, so it's a triangle, it's a troika. It is religion, patriarchy, and capitalism. So they
mm,
feed each other. And religion
mm,
and patriarchy are anti feminism, because all gods are men. And even when women are gods, like in India, like Kali and Durga and whatever, there are serious problems with deifying women. Also, when you're a Durga or a Kali, or definitely when you're a Kali, you're not worshipped inside the house. You're worshipped in the jungles. Only when you're a Gauri and a married facet of the same goddess is when you're worshipped inside the house. And as a Durga, you are in temples, big temples, so they're also anti women in that sense, that the superlative of feminine powers would be also categorized whether you're in temples or in homes or in jungles. So they're not really empowering the feminine, they're only appropriating the feminine to just push the feminine into certain kind of ticking the boxes exercises. So, so gods are anti women. Patriarchy is definitely anti women because patriarchy begins with who is the heir and who's controlling the womb to pass on the inheritance to and the name to. If a child is born, then women are definitely the mothers, and there has to be a test done, paternity test done, to identify whether if the father is a father. But that strength of women, that the child is produced from their womb. They are the estate holders of that product, that comes from male and female union, that is turned against women by putting a lock on their wombs through marriage, through monogamy, so that the man is rest assured that the child is his, so that he can pass on his land and his property and his name to the child. So, patriarchy starts from a very fundamental level, and it is anti-women. Religion has proven itself time and again to be anti-women. They include women sometimes. They make concessions for them, but they, even at organizational structures. So then when the third pillar comes in, which is capitalism, and is being fed by patriarchy and religion, and you will see that in any country, even in developed countries with socialist structures, you will see that religion and they're deeply patriarchal and they're deeply religious. How is feminism going to flourish? It is only going to be allowed to flourish to a certain extent, because there is a whole system, there is a whole formula. And if you're going to upset the formula, there can be some room for some calibration to the formula, and that they keep doing, but they will not allow you to change the formula. And feminism is not only about equality for women. It eventually trickles to being empathetic towards all genders, and the third gender, and also to all those who are marginalized, to all the vulnerables.
Exactly. The very basic of sensible human existence, which has been just labeled as this angry feminist. Of course, people will be angry with how things have been, but that's not that everyone is out there just angry all the time or anti-men. You have actually captured it really well with the holy or unholy trinity. And it kind of one feeds to other, and it's kind of a vicious cycle.
It's like a game. It's like a set game with rules, and they will make some changes for women or the marginalized to play. But actually, if you really want to rewrite write off patriarchy, then it's not the rules of the game that have to change. It's the playing field itself that has to change.
Totally.
You have to define power, redefine power. How is power defined? How is profit defined? You will have to find new definitions for them.
Yeah. Certain humans, mostly men, defined some systems and structure, and we can see that how they have served us so far. And therefore, people kind of wake up to this reality that this is not working, and then they will be lulled into subjugation through this entertainment, which is also of a certain color and tone. So, yeah, how would a revolution or readjustment happen? These days, feed people with cheap data and a lot of entertainment at the fingertips, and nobody's gonna really look at the neighbor and see how they're
Truth
faring.
basically has become suspect through social media. Truth has become suspect. Like, what do you believe in? So your fact checking becomes very important. Truth has been the philosophical guide for all of us, So the moment the definition of truth has changed, you're shaken as a society.
Yes, yes. And maybe the shakeup is needed because as you rightly mentioned, the playing field or how we operate, how we look at things, how we look at growth, what success means, all these definitions have been out there for a while and hasn't really served people or planet. Of course, a bunch of them that serve its purpose, but at the society at large, it has not. So I don't know, like how and where it comes from, but maybe the whole shakeup of everything around us is needed. Now let's shift gears a little bit. Your lens of seeing the world, like we all have a unique perspective through which we view the world and make sense of things. Of course, this lens gets refined, cleaned, changes colors over the years, and yet we all have our own lens. So, what is Purva Naresh's unique lens of seeing the world?
I feel that in the context of art, as artists, our prime responsibility is to keep telling stories. to keep recording. There is a line that has been given to us by Amir Aziz, "Sab kuch yaad rakha jayega." So that is a very important line. It has to be kept in mind that we are, if nothing else, if you're not famous and if you're not popular or we're not successful, we are still recorders. We're still archiving our timeline, and we are a timeline. We begin on a day and we end on a day, and we need to record that time, and we need to record what happened, what went down, and so that's the primary responsibility, so that generations to come can refer to our work. Generations coexisting with us can get affected by our world. We should not hope to change the world, because that's a very daunting task, and that might not happen. And the world is so huge, that's such a huge task, that we will never see it in totality. We will never see it happening as a end product. But maybe we're a part of a process. So just keep doing what you need to do, and keep asking questions, because that's what an artist does. They ask questions, and always in the favor of the vulnerable and the marginalized.
The last man standing or women standing. Yeah. Well said. Coming to your unique lens of seeing the world, if you put it in context of a woman in her midlife, navigating planet Earth, living in India, and doing what she wants to do, living life on her own terms, how do you define some non-negotiables and navigate life? Again, a broad question, choose to go in any direction you want.
It's not easy, of course, and it's not easy anywhere, whether be it India or anywhere in the world. But I am extremely privileged. I do have education. I do have confidence that I have developed through my privileges of where I was born, to who I was born, and how I was raised, and the education that I got, and the community that I found. And theater has really empowered me, because theater makes you braver, because then to live a certain life, you have given up on, dependence. Like, you don't live a very fancy life, so you don't have a lot of monetary needs. You cut down upon needs that are dependent upon others. You learn to live alone. You learn to be emotionally independent, and you learn to take certain kind of labels, and you take them and you wear them you flaunt them. You rather enjoy those labels rather than getting stigmatized by them. So my social confidence is my biggest currency, and I would always urge women to develop that, to have the ability to wear your labels and flaunt them as if they were prime labels. We currently have a small theater production, that's an ensemble production called Bavli Betiya, and it's in Hindi and English, and it's a musical production, and that is where we explore that face of women when they're activists outside of the house, and when they turn into good daughters within the parameters of the house, because it's very difficult to actually protest and dissent at home. It's easier to do it outside sometimes, especially if you're a faceless entity in a crowd. It's very easy to hold placards and believe in your ideology, but soft play it at home in the name of lihaz, in the name of tradition, in the name of not hurting your elders, whatever. And it's easier to let go of that negotiation at home. And it's much easier to shout out slogans in the parks or at college grounds. Um, so it is that space that we women, the bhali ladkiyan and the buri ladkiyan, the good daughters and the bad daughters, and how this space is so important, because this home space, this home ground is so important to analyze and process and figure, and how to do it with a sense of humor. I always feel that dissenting needs to come with a sense of humor, and one has to develop it and that you can only develop it by reading and social interactions and confidence. That if you say things in an empathetic manner, if you protest, even your protest has to be full of empathy, and you need to understand, even when the world is so polarized, even in India, when the political climate is so polarized, when I'm talking to someone who does not hold the same views as me, I try and remind myself that I have to be empathetic towards this person, because they just don't get it. They're anti-humanity and they're anti-them, actually. So I have to be empathetic towards that because they have not read the right literature, they have not seen the right films, they have not, heard the right debates. And I need to actually sympathize with them and then talk to them. And sometimes that really frustrates me because sometimes I do lose my temper and I do lose my patience. So, yes, for women or for anyone, actually, sense of humor, wearing your labels. For example, my nani was a tawaf, and that is a label. That is a label that is even given to urban corporate women today, and if they're succeeding or if they're going up the corporate ladder down fast, they're we know how they're climbing up so fast, where those two legs are going, so things like that. So my mother used to be very traumatized by that label. I am very proud of that label for my nanny. Yeah, I get angry when it's applied to me, but my mother spent her entire life denying that label by trying to be the good career woman, by trying to be a good housewife, by trying to be a good mother, and really spreading herself thin, ruining her health, dying early, and also spending very traumatic moments crying, trying to figure out why, when she was trying to tick the boxes of the society. And she was a very brave woman. She was very progressive, but she was also surrendering to a lot of ideas of being the good daughter, or the good wife. And so I, in reaction to her, am none of those. Nor was a good wife. I'm divorced. Nor I am a mother because I don't have any kids. And I'm very proud of my nanny. I don't hide the wife label. I remember when I was getting married, my in-laws were told, but no one talked about it. When you can't really talk about the truth, you don't talk about it at all, so that you don't have to lie.
Yes.
But I talk about my nanny being at the back all the time, and I'm very, very proud of it. In fact, I take pleasure in saying that she was such an exotic creature, and she was almost like that woman behind, with the beautiful saris and the glamorous saris and the glamorous jewelry and the glamorous stories that I like to tell from stage. So I live her life on stage and in films, and I've learned to enjoy my labels. So I think that's that I have to say that but that also comes with a social confidence that comes from privilege. And if you don't have that privilege, you'll have to cultivate it, and that's a tough task. And women have to be very sympathetic towards women because women are always fighting each other for the same spot that patriarchy has given us, and those are very limited. So we're always fighting each other, and we need to learn to not fight each other.
Yeah, that's been told that you have to fight for it. There is space for everyone. And you spoke about your privilege and social confidence. There's also a cultural currency that brings that kind of confidence in oneself to be secure in your own space, which comes from, of course, your background and your household. I'm very keen, Purva, to hear some of the labels that you wear as badge of honors. Let's hear them.
Oh, a lot of them. Hot-headed, financially broke all the time, so not in control of her finances, not an adult really in that sense, immature, emotionally chaotic. Of course, the colorful Randi and whatever, besharam, behaya, belihaz, in Hindi, and especially at weddings. At weddings, there's always this thing of I'm the favorite bua or the favorite mosi, so I always get invited to all the weddings because I have a younger vibe, and the young ones love that. But by the parents of the younger ones, so my cousins, I'm also always made to share a room with a child because I come solo sometimes, or they always want to know what I'm wearing, or they always want to know and what I'm wearing, not because now to everybody wears whatever because it's fashionable to wear all kinds of dresses, but they want to know whether I am wearing the correct class. Now it's about class. Like, are you or they come to my house and they're like, oh, your house is so disorganized. Oh, you're so disorganized in life. Oh, your health is gone. I'm a diabetic. So, oh, your health is gone because you're single. You are in a sector that is so disorganized. You're an artist and there's no financial security. And financial security either comes from a career or from a husband. So you have neither. So, that is why if anything is wrong in my life, it is because I'm unmarried. And on WhatsApp family groups, I am told not to get too political and to keep my views to myself. And just when I start saying something, they're like, oh, okay, okay, okay. What did you eat today? Or where's your next vacation? Because I have a fancy lifestyle. Oh, yeah. And even when I had a corporate job, I used to walk in on Monday morning meetings that the CEO used to hold with business heads. And if I was even 5 minutes late, they would be like, I would walk in and they'd look at me, all these men and women who were business heads, and they would look at me and they knew I'm a theater person. And it was a film studio, so I was always championing scripts on the basis of their merit as stories and not in terms of their business analysis alone. They would look at me and they would be like, oh, heavy night, huh? Or like, they probably like as if I was doing drugs just because I do theater. The insinuation would be, oh, heavy night, or you had trouble waking up in the morning, or wild night, or something. Just be like, oh, this is a non-MBA person trying to control the business of art. And so I was never taken seriously in that room, except by a couple of people like the chairman or the CEO who were more sensible. But the rival business heads would always be like, if I championed a film, they would be sure to look the other way, and they're like, no, 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 there's something there's going to be some problem with this project. So so yeah, the labels are kind of comes in all shapes and sizes and ways and means.
No, I have also been called intimidating.
Oh, yes, of course. I've always been, even women have called me intimidating. I was told I don't mingle with my colleagues during lunch hours. I don't go and sit with them, and I eat in my cabin. And I would be like, yeah, it was true in one case because the moment you got pally with them, they would get touchy feely first of all without permission, and they would start behaving like they were your bum jumps. And they would, like if you're wearing a nice dress and they complimented you, it'll be immediately followed up by a statement like, oh, looking nice, and you'd say thank you, and they'll be like, heavy date tonight, is it? And you'd be like, what? Like, develop some kind of a disdain for them. And then HR called me and said, these men have complained about you, that you don't mingle with them and you have a supercilious attitude. And I was like, yeah, well, they talk shit. So what am I supposed to do? No, you can just, sometimes just be like her, and And I said, who decides how many coffees? Like, I'll have one
Yeah.
coffee, and then they'll be like, no, no, no. She said no to me like twice, and so like this is really stupid. Like, you really should start gender classes for them and gender debates and arguments and discussions rather than doing this. Rather than telling me to fall into line, maybe you should think about making them more woke.
Yeah. And that's another word that has become quite a contentious one these days.
Yes, yes.
Oh my God. So coming to your characters, I can now see that where the autonomy and sense of agency comes to your women characters, the characters you write. It's kind of a extension of your own being on stage. So do you see yourself in almost all your characters, some bits and pieces of you?
Yes, but of late I've started also figuring out it can't always be me, because then it's a very, very limited truth that I'm exploring. So I do try to make them very different from me as well, so as to give them more texture and more dimensions. Yeah, I mean, in a lot of my plays, you'll see a lot of my nani and a lot of her brother, Munu Mama. Um, and but yes, everything is being processed through me. Like, ultimately, it's all being processed through me. So there is a lot of me in a lot of my plays, but in all of my plays. And initially, the work was very much about my lived reality or something that I know really well. I would not pick up a subject that I didn't know very well, because I was very bent upon what is the truth of this piece, and the way I know it. And now I have liberated myself from that. And I do start depending upon a lot upon research, debates, arguments, and also the truth is more complex. It's not singular, right? So a more complex idea of truth rather than just my idea of truth. So yeah. So
Yeah.
of late, the work is more open to other perspectives as well.
In fact, Chandni Rata is an adaptation.
Yeah. It is an adaptation of Dostoevsky's White Nights. And so is Babli Betiya. It is there's a part of it which is testimonials, which are other women telling their stories, and the stories that they have selected. And my intervention in those stories is actually very limited. Um, I want to have them tell their story their way. So yeah, I mean, yes, Chandni Rate and Babli Betiya, the two latest productions of Aram, are more in tune with other people's truth rather than just my idea of truth.
Yeah. You wear multiple hats in your production, right? Like you definitely write and you direct. Which persona takes over when you're closer to the release date? Is it like director kind of overrides the
Oh, my
writer?
team is always telling me that the director is always overriding because the artistic vision is always taking a superior position to the producer's hat because I always go over budget. Or I always not over budget. I never go over budget, but I compromise profits from the budget, from the grants. I even compromise my fee. I compromise the line production fee. All the legit items that from a budget are supposed to go to me. So the first thing is the writer's fee is compromised. अरे इसको budget production budget में डाल दो. Then the director's fee is compromised. Oh, it's okay. I will surrender my fee. And then the last thing is the line production fee, which belongs to the company. That gets surrendered, and then that really drives them mad. Like they're like, no, you can't do this. This is not sensible. So yes, I mean that hat, the director's hat, becomes the most prominent hat when it comes to release date. It all begins with the writer's hat, with the writer saying this is how it will
Yeah.
be done, and then the director. So yeah, I guess I mean if you're looking at it creatively, it's the writer's hat because the writer is the genesis of all that is there on stage. And then after that, the producer's last hat that I wear. The only hat that I wear as a producer is that this has to be excellent quality, and we're not compromising on quality.
Yeah, makes sense. And is there always a story brewing back of your mind? Like, do you work on multiple stories at a time?
I'm trying to, as a commissioned writer, from where I earn my livelihood because theatre doesn't pay yet. I am multitasking on a lot of projects, so it's not like I can't hold too many stories together. But when I'm producing and directing, it is a little tough. Yeah, maybe two max. Three.
We touched a little bit about censorship, and of course, state censorship is all pervading. About self censorship, when it enters one's craft, it's a very dangerous trajectory. Has it been sometimes when you caught yourself in the act of self censoring while you're penning down a story or work backwards from it?
So actually, it's a little complex, the answer. So what happens is that I want to make my stories engaging. I want to engage with the masses. I don't want to be in my echo chamber talking about subjects that people are already interested in or already know about. Those are my bonus audiences. I want to have new audiences and I want to engage with them. But the problem is that the moment you have something that has an agenda, which I try also liberate myself from these days, people sense that this is not just simple entertainment or mindless entertainment, but I do want to engage with. I think television has done a lot of damage to our society and turned people into less thinking, less reacting people because they're actually dumbing down the stories so much. And so I do want to engage with that audience. I do want to talk to them and I do want them to lean in. And so my plays are actually very, very engaging, you could say, and playing to the lowest common denominator without being idiotic or dumbed down too much. And so I never have to deal with that question of, oh, is this too provocative or is this too radical? Because I know I'm talking to an audience that is not intellectually or politically stimulated a lot. They're emotionally stimulated a lot, or rather manipulated a lot through television
Right.
content or mainstream content. So I am trying to engage them in a more sophisticated argument about something that they don't want to engage with. So I am already very mainstream. So I don't censor myself on intent, but I do structure myself to be more accessible. And no, I have never caught myself censoring a line or a scene. In fact, a lot of our plays that are very, very popular in urban cities, sometimes when we go to smaller towns, I have I have got forwards from organizers saying we are getting these kind of forwards from the audience, and especially in cities like Indore, where once we did a play which is very popular. It is one of our most popular plays, and people saying कि किस माँ बाप की बेटी ऐसा एंडिंग लिख सकती है, और ये कैसा बेहुदा ये कौन सी बदतमीज बच्ची है and all that, and then and because I was a woman also, because बच्ची बच्ची के happened a lot of times. Before me, Atul Kumar had gone with the play, and that had also met with audience resistance. But there, they all said, "Natak अच्छा नहीं." Whereas the play has traveled the world. It is one of those most popular plays of Atul Kumar. But in my case, it became Badtameez Bachchi. So he's a man, I'm a woman. So yeah, no. In fact, because we don't censor ourselves, we are met with huge resistance sometimes. But usually, people walk up to us and say, "Hey, that was very sly, a very good way of engaging us on this subject."
But is it any different when you are writing on commission?
Oh, I walk out of those projects, and that's why I'm having a lot of difficulty now finding many people who want to engage with me. I mean, I never give up on I don't walk out of projects. I hand them over when I feel that they can be handed over. I have been forced into taking certain decisions, but I have always fought back, and frankly, I choose the people I work with. So I made myself a very safe chamber where I work. Actually, that hasn't really happened a lot of times, but I am lucky that way. But a couple of times it happened when it came to things like I remember there was one series that I was writing, and there was one character suddenly dying by suicide. Suddenly. And I was like, but how can they suddenly die by suicide? We have to talk about their mental health. We have to, build it up. And they were like, no, 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 this character needs to go. And, don't worry about that. We'll just give them this reason, and they discover this and they just go jump off a building. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that could be a trigger. But so they were just not happy to engage in any kind of screen time for that character anymore. And I just felt that that was so wrong, because that is when suicide was being treated as, when that whole conversation was happening, that you die by suicide and you don't commit suicide, that it's a mental health issue. And they just refused to engage with that idea. And so I had to write it because there was a deadline, and you have to respect the deadline as a writer, as a commission writer. Deadline is sacrosanct. You can maybe play around it by 5-10 days, but that's about it. So I did write it as how they wished, but then I backed off. So I was doing story, screenplay, and dialogue, and I backed off the dialogues and the screenplay part of it. I finished the story, and then I said, "You have ample time to find yourself a screenplay writer and a dialogue writer." But I mean, I don't want to work with a system that is so not empathetic towards this burning issue right now. So this happens, but it doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just switch gears and talk a little bit about influence of literature in your own life and some of your favorite books, perhaps, or maybe any kind of art form.
I don't know. I read a lot of poets. I don't read books, specific books, but I read a lot of poets. I read Manglesh Jabral, I read Rajesh Joshi, I read Naresh Saxena, I read Vinod Kumar Shukla. But दीवार में खिड़की रहती थी is और रहती है, दीवार में खिड़की रहती थी. हाँ, Vinod Kumar Shukla ji ki is one of the first novels which really follow a structure that doesn't have a plot. And I think that is so necessary, because we are following plot over character in today's writing, because everything is like move fast, fast. What's the forward story action? What's happening next? What's the next plot? What's the next hook? Keep them hooked, keep them on high energy, high adrenaline, all that. And all that comes through negative playouts, like jealousy, anger, deceit, all negative emotions, because all the sattvic emotions, all the pure emotions, all the humane emotions are considered dull and slowing down pace and things like that. And character deliberation, morality, grays, no, just plain the binary of black and white. So this is one of those novels that really just floats. And so does a lot of Russian literature, actually. There's very little plot, but there's a lot of characterization. And that is where human character lives.
Aspects kind of come out, right?
So I think more character, less plot is what I recommend people to read, because they have really been fed a diet of high adrenaline, like just plot, and nonsensical things happening. Like they don't make sense. They're just thrilling, It's like sensational. It's like, wow. It's like how news does not make sense anymore. It's like we've just become such addicts to, oh, what's next? Oh my God, what's the next big news that's going to shake me up? And I can go to people and say, hey, did you hear this? This happened. Rather than really thinking about why it happened. So not what, but why. So the stories that focus and linger on why what happened, rather than what happened. A lot of Russian literature, a lot of Vinod Kumar Shukla, a lot of even Uday Shankar's और अंत में प्रार्थना, उदय शंकर ने क्या नाम है उनका? उदय प्रकाश और
Uday Prakash.
उदय प्रकाश जी की और अंत में
Hmm.
प्रार्थना. It's a lovely read. So many writers. I mean, Russian literature, though, I would just recommend. The recent reads I have, the Mother Mary Comes to Me is must read. Yeah, it's a must read. All of William Dalrymple's work, I love reading.
Okay.
My favorite writers. Ruskin Bond for simple readers, like people who just love simple stories. Just so much feel there, very little plot.
Yeah, I visit Ruskin Bond every 2 years, just to kind of clean the palate,
Yeah,
so to
because
say.
there's just there's very little plot, but there's so much feeling and there's so much empathy for environment, for people, so much observation, so much just slowing down in life and taking a pause.
Exactly, the very simple storytelling, and you have to be a wonderful person at what you do to do it in a simple
Exactly.
fashion. Because complicated everyone can do, right? If you can cook a wonderful meal with 3 ingredients, you know your
Same
thing.
applies to literature, poetry, because usually people think that poetry has to be non-accessible or inaccessible, and I think that's just stupid, because that's a lot of percolation makes anything more, a lot of refinement makes something simpler, not difficult. So
Absolutely. Coming to poetry, अब वो उसके बिना तो नहीं खत्म कर सकते. आपके पापा की पोएट्रीज लाइक मेरी 2-3 फेवरेट हैं. एक तो वो जो मेरे घर कभी नहीं आएंगे, मैं उनके घर
ये
जाऊंगा,
विनोद
मुझे
कुमार
बहुत
शुक्ल जी
पसंद है.
की है. ये वो पढ़ते बहुत है.
अच्छा.
I love a poem called पहचान. So the poem is पहचान. धुएं के साथ ऊपर उठूंगा मैं, बच्चों जिसे तुम पढ़ते हो कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड, वही बनकर छा जाऊंगा मैं. पेड़ कहीं होंगे तो और हरे हो जाएंगे, फल कहीं होंगे तो और पक जाएंगे. जब उन फलों की मिठास तुम तक पहुंचेगी या हरियाली भली लगेगी, तब तुम मुझे पहचान लोगे और कहोगे, अरे पापा. So yeah, it's emotionally also very moving, and it also is very similar to a story that Ruskin Bond has written, which is about this young boy whose father has died, passed away. He doesn't understand what's happened, and he's asking what's happened. Nobody's answering him, and then they begin to take the coffin, and he follows the coffin. He stopped, and he uh, follows the coffin at a distance then, and he sees the people go into the jungle and place the coffin into the earth, and he's like, where are you taking my father? Why are you doing this to him? And then I don't know how he comes to this last realization, but it's like his father had said, oh, I'll become a tree, and so he's now waiting for his father to become a tree. And this poem is about matter never dies, it just changes form, and how my father will become, the Hawaii or the Phal or the Phool or the change that I would love. And it's so it's a beautiful, very, 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 very moving poem. Yeah, this is something. This is a quote, I think, from a very famous writer, and both Vinodji and my father have quoted it often. Ki, a good poem is never finished; it's abandoned.
Okay, so we are coming to an end of our conversation. What has been your ultimate inquiry, Purva, in recent times?
The recent inquiry was that why has art failed for us to be in this position where everything is sliding towards such an extreme idea of power and authority? Why has art failed us? What has failed the world? Where have the artists failed the society? That has been the inquiry.
Yeah. And so, of course, it can lead to some kind of despair at times. So how do you fill your own cup when you are like down in the dumps? How do you pull yourself back up and find hope again?
Go to sleep, read something, eat something nice, go for a walk, exercise. Exercise.
Hmm. Any last words for our audience in terms of how can they access more art, and those who have refined taste, where else can they go and find good theater in India? And those who are just starting on the journey, how could they get started?
Ooh, those are two very big questions. To get started is to start reading. Start reading. I think that's the first step towards becoming any kind of an artist, even a dancer. Start reading. Start doing. Riyaz is one of the biggest things. So doing it every day. Reading, then reading every day, and then doing whatever it is that you're choosing to do every day. Where can you watch good theater in India? Find a theater community, find a venue in smaller towns. But otherwise, National Center for Performing Arts, Bombay, and MAC in Bombay. Adyam Theatre has come up with some decent plays, that are not propaganda driven. Bangalore has very good theatre community. Pune has a very good theatre community. These are the ones that I know of. Jabalpur has a very good theatre community. Yeah. So these are some centers that I know of. And always try and stay in touch with your ethnic identity. Read literature in your language, of your language. Listen to music of your region. Because somewhere that has gone into shaping who you are. Maybe not the only thing, but one of the main ingredients.
That is such a wonderful advice, because we are being drowned by so much of English literature.
That's also because we're a colonized nation. So especially for Indians, we're a colonized nation. So we have learned to be ashamed of the vernacular. We have to let go of that
Yeah.
shame
Yeah.
and embrace our ethnic identities because of that, because we're a colonized nation.
Yes. And we can go into a total different conversation about decolonization, but that's for another time. Thank you so much, Purva, for taking the time. I'm sure people will have with various different takeaways and something to reflect as they listen to us.
Thank you.
So thank you once again. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.